Welcome to the Catholic Life Coach Podcast. My name is Carla Fitz. I am a certified life coach, wife, and mom of two beautiful little girls. My hope for this podcast is to offer support and empower other Catholic women to live their most authentic life. To share life coaching tools from a Catholic perspective in order to help you live a more fulfilling life filled with peace, joy, and abundance. Let's get started. Hello, friends, and welcome to this episode. I am so excited. Been looking forward to this interview for a while. I was telling my husband about it, and I'm so excited to have a new friend over. Her name is Catherine, and we are going to be talking about anxiety and also normalizing us needing help when it comes to mental health. Hi, Catherine. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you for taking the time to have me and being willing to open up about this topic because it's definitely something we're hearing more about, but I feel like we're only hearing about it. We're not talking about it yet. So anytime I get a
Yes.
chance to bring up this topic, I'm excited to talk more about it.
Yes, I love it. Okay, I want you to tell everybody your full name and what you do. And yes, start there.
So my name is Catherine DiNuzzo. I'm a licensed professional counselor and I run my own private practice. But for about the last 4 years, I have also ran a website called Sacred Heart Mental Wellness. And my whole goal is to stop the feeling of mental health being a negative, a crisis, a mental health problem, and change it to about wellness. So I have videos and resources, and I wrote a book, The Catholic Guide to Anxiety, that is all about how God made us good, how our faith is there to help, and also proactive, positive, empowering talk about anxiety and how we can overcome it. And having it doesn't mean we're bad.
Yes. I love that. I love that so much. The way I got started into life coaching was because of anxiety. This is why I was so excited to talk about this. Because for a very long time prior to learning about life coaching and adding my faith into it as well, I used to shame myself terribly for having so much anxiety because my go-to solution for anxiety was eating. And so I had gained a ton of weight uh, because I was trying to tame the anxiety with all the shame and all the talk and everybody saying, oh, you should just figure it out on your own. You should be able to get over it by yourself. And it's just, it didn't work.
Absolutely. And what we learn in the book is how our bodies are made and what that anxious response is. So a lot of times we say, I tell my clients, I know you think you're crazy, but I'm going to tell you why you're not. And we're
Mhm.
going to go over on how your brain works and how it responds to a stimulus and how it is really good when it's the correct stimulus.
Yeah.
But anxiety is when it's the wrong stimulus. So, if we think of anxiety as our fight, flight, or freeze, right? God gave it to us because he loves us. That
Mhm.
means when there's a bear and we need to fight that bear or we need to run from that bear, he's getting our bodies ready to do that.
Yeah.
But what happens when that is sending your kids to school for the first time?
Mhm.
What if it's meeting your in-laws? What if it's being on a podcast
Yeah.
or, meeting new friends at mass or having people over for dinner, whatever those things that cause us anxiety, it's
Mhm.
the same response. Our body's reacting as if it's a bear, but our brains know it's not a bear. And I always say that's where anxiety lies, where our body thinks we're about to die and we're in
Mhm.
danger. And our thinking brain is like, no, we're not. We're okay. And where
Right.
those two fight is where anxiety lies.
Yes, yes. And I also think there is that anxiety, and correct me if I'm wrong, but anxiety comes from an overwhelmed amount of emotions. Because sometimes it's like fear mixed with sadness, and then you're fighting all of the emotions, trying not to feel them, and then they just intensify. And for me, it always turned into anxiety. And before I was able to recognize that that's what was happening, I thought I was collapsing from within. It's just something is wrong with me.
Yeah, anxiety's overall job is to control and make sure that we're safe.
Right.
And sometimes, depending on our stories, we feel we need to be safe from sadness.
Yeah.
Like sadness is bad.
Hmm.
Fear is bad. I have a lot of people who have grief. They think grief is
Yeah.
bad. Trauma is bad. And if all those things are bad, well, then anxiety's job is like, we can't have any of those feelings. We need to numb you out. We have to make them all go away. Where what I think we do in counseling and life coaching is teach our clients, it's actually okay to feel,
Hmm.
and feeling sadness is okay. And when you actually let that sadness be felt, it tends to go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But when we don't, and we're like, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it, what do? We think about it.
Yes, more. And that's what we
Yes. And
focus on.
then absolutely. I have an analogy that I do when I public speak is I'll tell the group, I'll say, okay, I'm gonna do a little exercise with you to give you an idea of how this feels. And the first thing I'll ask is I'll say, don't think about apple pie.
Yes.
And then everyone laughs just like you did. And they're like, okay, I just thought about apple pie, but
Yes.
then this is where anxiety comes in. Well, now I'm like, why did I think about apple pie? She told me not to think about apple pie. I shouldn't have been thinking about apple pie. Now I'm still thinking about apple pie. Why can't I stop thinking about apple pie? Like it just grows and grows. But if I would have started off and said, okay, now I want you to do is I want you to think about apple pie, you would have done it. And then you'd look at me like, and what was the point? Like, I'm over it. Next. And we have to see that that is how our emotions, if we give our emotions a minute to just sit and to be and to realize that they are good, that those emotions are part of us, but they don't have to define us, then we feel them, we acknowledge them, and then we kind of put them on the shelf. We can kind of move on with that, with them. But when we deny it and we try to control, and anxiety says, no, no, you can't feel sad. You should be over that by now. I hear that a lot in the counseling office. Well, I should be over this by now.
Yes.
And I think it just builds and builds and builds until it's really hard to overcome.
Yeah. I love explaining any emotion and especially anxiety because it's such a strong emotion as a toddler with a knife. When you
Mhm.
let the toddler run around with a knife, it's dangerous, right? But
Yeah.
when you allow yourself to pause and pay
Mhm.
attention to your toddler and connect to that toddler and love on it, it soothes it. It feels seen, it feels loved, it feels accepted, and
Mhm.
it calms down a lot faster. Whereas if I was to put my toddler, I have a 4-year-old, she's not a toddler anymore, but if I was to put her in a corner and be like, oh my
Mhm.
word, you are being so loud and obnoxious, just sit there
Mhm.
and be quiet, and I'm going to ignore you until you're done. What is a toddler going to do? It's going to freak out even more.
Mhm. Be
And it's the
more
same
loud.
thing with yeah, it's the same with our emotions. Our emotions freak out even more when we don't pay attention. And it's funny because sadness is actually has become one of my favorite emotions to feel because there is always something that God is trying to communicate to us through our emotions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that when we're able to see those things as good and to sit with them for a minute, I think it's really important, and I just want to kind of hammer this idea in, is that why people fear emotions is they are afraid they will get stuck in them. If I
Hmm.
feel sad, I will feel sad for the rest of my life. It will never go away. Like if I allow this in, that's it. I'm done. It's gonna overwhelm me. And I've yet to have a client who that's the case. Like we've always
Yes.
been able to say, okay, let's work through those feelings and let's give them a space and love ourselves in what has caused that emotion, why we're feeling what we are. And then it does dissipate. Then we're actually able to move through the emotion instead of keep putting that barrier of, I call it bullying, right? Bullying
Mhm.
ourselves. But stop it. Why do you think about that? You're bad. You gotta stop it. Instead of
Yeah.
just being like, no, I'm not bad. These feelings are part of me and they're how God works through me.
100%. And it is the belief that if we spend too much time with it or if we pay attention to it, we're just going to get stuck there. But in reality, it only takes a few minutes and a few seconds for you to process those emotions when you actually allow it to be there. And it's just, and you're going to realize what it is your body and your mind and your soul is needing from you in that moment if you pay attention. When we ignore them, it just becomes a buffering party. Let me just eat to calm it down. Let me watch something to calm it down, right? And I think it's so powerful. And this is why to my clients, I'm always saying, when you work through your thoughts and your limiting beliefs and you learn to process your emotions, what you gain is freedom. We think that
Mhm.
if we pay too much attention of our emotions, we're going to be stuck. When in reality, when we acknowledge them, we gain a lot of freedom.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know you would agree with me, but I'm a little biased to the counseling process and to life coaching and to not doing it alone, because what I'm imagining is there's a number of your listeners right now that have said, do they know how much I've thought about it? Because I'm telling you, I have thought about it 100 million times. Like I
Yes.
have sat in it, I have thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's that idea is that when we have our thoughts in our heads and we don't let anyone else into them, what happens is everything is true,
Yes.
right? Everything that I believe, I know there's times as a mom, I have teenagers, right? And I'm not gonna lie, there are days when I'm like, I am obviously the worst person in the world. I must be the most embarrassing. I must be an idiot. I must have no idea what I'm talking about. And I have these thoughts, right? Until I bring them out into the light, until I talk to a friend about it. So I bring it to God and I have to say it out loud, like, oh, you're the worst mom ever. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not the worst mom ever, right? Maybe that wasn't the best thing, or maybe I have a teenage daughters. I don't know. But like I know that the truth is not that I'm the worst mom ever, or that
Yes.
no one loves me, or you know, all those insecurities that in our minds, when we're just thinking about them over and over again, they just stay the same.
Yeah.
But when we do trust someone to share that with, they're able to help us speak truth into it. And I think it really brings God into it, right? When we're able to say, no, these thoughts are of me, not of God. Like, help me to see the truth in the lies that I keep believing.
Yeah. And I think that is the devil's biggest tool, and it is to utilize our loneliness, or what we believe to be loneliness, and our head, which is what we live with daily and every second of the day,
Mhm.
to lie to us. And when we are by ourselves, we believe them blindly, like you
Mhm.
said. And one of my favorite questions to ask my clients is like, is that true? And then they just pause for a
Mhm.
second and they're like, wait, that's not true. And it is so disempowering, and you feel so alone and so overwhelmed because you can't see past your own thoughts. This is why I think it's so key to bring someone else into your life that can support you and hold those emotions for you and thoughts in a
Mhm.
neutral environment, with love, with kindness, with support, and no opinions. It's
Mhm.
very freeing and very, ever since I started working with a life coach, I've had a life coach because
Mhm.
I function so much better. I waste so much less time in my thoughts and in my mind. Because when I'm by myself in my loneliness, in that hole where the devil is like, you are not good enough, you are not pretty enough, you are whatever the thought is, or you're not that good at speaking to start a podcast. That was one of my thoughts when I started the podcast. And I was like, if we stay in that, there are so many opportunities missed, wasted in our heads by ourselves, where we can have someone else guiding us and supporting us to then go do what God is calling us to do. Because it's not easy. Anytime you're
Mhm.
doing anything new, it's terrifying and brings up a lot of things that need to be healed. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And if, so later on, I'll talk more about where you could get my book. But in my book, it's a very interesting story because I have been in counseling for a long time. When I decided to write my book, I was sitting and it was 2020, and I'm
Mm.
watching the world unfold. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, there are not going to be enough of us counselors, life coaches to handle what is coming. I knew that life was going to get very hard. Our fight or flight was going to come in and people were going to get through that initial phases, but the aftermath was going to be very hard on people emotionally. And I was thinking, okay, what do I want? What do I feel like God is calling of me to do in this space? And at Adoration, he's like, you need to write a book on anxiety.
Mm.
And I thought, do you know me? Have you met me? I'm dyslexic. I don't really read book. I don't let alone write a book, right? Like, you know how that is not going to happen. And then I would go and live my life. And then I'd go back to Adoration and I'd be like, hey, God, what are you asking of me? He's like, I want you to write this book. And I'm like, did we go over this last time? Like, there's no way that I can do this. And I stayed in that moment for a really long time until honestly, I couldn't even look at the monstrance
Yeah.
because I knew that it was a very clear that God was saying, I have something that I need you to do,
Yes.
and I have people who need your help, and you're saying no to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I humbly just was like, fine, I will do this, but I have no idea how. And I actually met like that next day. I read a blog from a writer who I really felt like had my voice, and she was a friend of mine. And I reached out to her and I was like, Meg, if I voice dictated a book to you, would you help me write it? And she's like, absolutely. And that's where my book came to life. So, yes, I'm still a dyslexic who is not the best writer, but God, knowing what I could give and help people, blessed me with Meg to like make those pieces come. See, we always think sometimes like, oh God, just heal me, make me able to do it all by myself. But what he does is he's like, no, no, like you, me, and the people I'm bringing into your life, we are all going to do this together.
Yes.
And so for me, that my book, I believe in what's in it 100%. But for me personally, it's this like, I did it. I overcame those fears. Like I believed I was enough. I wasn't enough. And look at how with God, I was more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so blessed to hear when people say, I finally have felt seen in my anxiety. I
Mm-hmm.
have husbands and wives who are talking better and like they're coming into their faith and into their like own overcoming anxiety. And I'm like, oh, if I would have kept saying no,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have been that source to people. That
Yes.
help wouldn't have been there. And that breaks my heart. And so I'm really glad that I was able to surrender that in my I'm not enough. Like I don't think I left there being like, oh, I totally am enough. I'm going to be the best writer
Right.
ever. But I did know that God was going to help me with all the things I needed to make it possible. And if
Yes.
you're struggling with anxiety, struggling with mental health, I think we have to realize that God will help and bring the right people into your life to support you. And He wants your healing and He wants your joy. And sometimes you're sitting there thinking, this is impossible if they only knew. That's definitely what I thought. If
Yes.
only they knew. But once I was able to really surrender that, God took care of all the other pieces.
I think that's the beauty of it, is that it is in our weaknesses that God is glorified. Like, I
Mhm.
love that. This was just in the gospel, I think, this last weekend with St. Paul asking him to take away his pain. And God is like,
Mhm.
no, it is in this that I will show my mercy and my glory.
Mhm.
And it is because we are not meant to do it alone. We are meant to walk with God. One of my favorite sayings, and I say this a lot now, is from St. Augustine, that without God, I can't. But without me, God won't. And it's
Mhm.
just, I love that. It gives me chills every time I say it. It makes me want to cry because this is your story as well. If we were so stuck in our heads, spending so much time in our heads saying no, because I'm not good enough, no, because
Mhm.
God is not able to act through us. I think the other thing that comes up for me a lot is with the apostles in the boat. And I've said this in another podcast as well, where God could have just said, hey, fish, get in, hop on in. And instead, he uses the apostles to participate in the miracle. And that's what we're doing as
Mhm.
human beings as well. And as members of the church, like we need to participate in these miracles, but we
Mhm.
need that support. I think that is key. I think we need to stop judging ourselves
Mhm.
for needing help and needing support.
I have a sticker that I sell on my website, and I wish I was in a place where I could give it to everyone for free everywhere I go because it's the best. And it's just a circle, and in very big writing, it says, "Don't be a bully,"
Mm.
because everyone agrees with that. There's no one who says bullying is correct.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
then, really small writing where you kind of got to look closer and think about it, it says to yourself.
Hmm.
Because what do we do all the time? We say things to ourselves that we would never say to someone else.
Yes.
If a friend came to us struggling and they were like, I really feel like I'm not okay and I'm not doing well, you wouldn't be like, well, you aren't good and you are bad and you should never
Yeah.
let anyone know about this. You're like, thank you for telling me. Let's get you help. I love you. Let me,
Yeah.
we encourage, we give support, we help them along. But when it's ourselves, we have a whole different narrative.
Yeah.
And I think we really have to challenge ourselves on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Is I believe that we need to do it alone. Like we should be able to do it alone. And that's one of the thoughts that are so diminishing and that takes away a lot of our peace is I should. I should
Hmm.
do that. I shouldn't do this. I should be this way. I
Hmm.
should be able to do it by myself. And it's just,
Hmm.
God never said, hey, I love somebody said, I think it might have been Father Mike that was saying that in our Father, we literally start with our Father. God put us in this earth
Hmm.
together as a community
Hmm.
to support one another. He gave us crosses to carry. He's helping us carry the crosses, but we have one another to help as well. And
Hmm.
the first person that you spend the most time with is yourself. And so
Hmm.
if we're bullies to ourselves and we don't heal that, nothing
Hmm.
moves along.
Absolutely. And then we tend to hurt the people around us in our own
Yes.
hurts. And so taking those steps to really start to heal and allow ourselves to be loved and to love ourselves, I think is a really important first step.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That's been one of the things that, and I share this with a lot of people, that life coaching didn't just help me lose the weight. Life coaching helped me like with my own self-image. I just took a picture and I'm going to post about it later because I'm 7 months pregnant. And this has been the healthiest pregnancy I've had. And there are moments in my head where I'm like, I'm huge. This is crazy. I'm out of control. And then immediately, but I have my life coach and I have these tools that help me
Hmm.
remind myself that this isn't true. This is the
Yeah.
healthiest you've ever been. And we
Hmm.
can bring truth to those lies. And then it also changes everything around you. For me, it's been my relationship with my husband, listening to my husband in a completely different way than I used to, because I had
Hmm.
so many thoughts and so many emotions in my own head that whatever he said, I translated it as something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so it's like these tools change. I'm not lying when I say it changes our lives, because it's every single aspect of our lives changes. And then you bring God into the
Mhm.
equation. It's just, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that I'm very excited for this generation because I do feel a more openness to that. That's going to be changing the lives of the generation to come.
Yeah.
Right. If we can, and this is kind of where Sacred Heart Mental Wellness comes to be, is that if imagine a world if we treated mental health the way we treat going to the gym,
Hmm.
right? New Year's, everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna start going to the gym, I'm gonna eat healthier. No one goes, why? What's
Yeah.
wrong with you? Did you not pray more about that? Like, seriously, like, why would you try to do that? They're like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Great. If I was like, oh, I'm meeting with a nutritionist, I'm going to meet with a private, a personal trainer, they'd be like, oh, that's so good for you. That's awesome. Why is it that when we talk about mental health, we don't do that?
Yeah.
Right. We're like, well, what's wrong? It's like, oh, there's nothing wrong. I want to live healthy. I want
Yes.
to enjoy my more of my life. And if we change that narrative for our kids, like if they see us living a different narrative, maybe they won't have the challenges that so many of us have had to overcome
Yeah.
to get to where we are today.
For sure. And I also think we see it, and this is something you and I were talking about when we first met, that when it comes to like the investment that you have to make into your mental health, people are like, oh no, I shouldn't have to spend money on that. I should just be able to do it on my own. It's like, and I think it was you that was saying like, we do not implement that when there is something wrong with our bodies. If we have to see a
Hmm.
doctor, we're gonna go pay the doctor to
Hmm.
help us, right? Yeah, I
Yep.
want you to talk about that because it was yes.
Well, I find, I mean, and I understand that it's hard to put money towards anything.
Yeah.
But if you were to go to a friend and you had a big lump on your neck, the friend wouldn't say, oh, like I could take care of that for you. Let me just cut that out for you. You'd be like, oh my gosh, you need to go see a doctor right now. Like, let's let them take care of it. So we have to realize that, yes, you might have very loving friends. You might have a supportive husband, but there's also a skill and training that comes into life coaching and counseling. We're really not just listening, we're listening with a very intentional ear. And I think there's something very special about what counselors and life coaches are able to do. And so, what I always try to encourage my clients to see their friends and family as is they're the supporters.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I want them part of this support net. I want them to walk with us as we do this, but there are parts of the job that you need to give me the scalpel because I'm trained with the scalpel. You don't
Yes.
want to just give that scalpel to anyone. And I think that's sometimes why people get hurt in a lot of situations because they're just not equipped and
Hmm.
they're trying, like the friends are trying, I tend, when I start to work with a couple, I will meet with the spouses pretty early on and just say, like, I need you to support me and not do my job because it makes my job harder. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you have to let me do what I do best and what I've been trained to do. And I will teach you how to support and how to do that. But if you try to take over my job, it tends to make it harder before it gets easier. And
Yeah.
so seeing that as we do it, the same thing with the car, same thing with so many parts of our lives, we just accept that if I need help in this area, I need to see a professional.
Mhm.
And I think we need to do that with mental health also.
Yes. Yeah. I think family members, and this was something that I went through with my husband as well, because we love sitting and talking and supporting each other.
Mhm,
But there is not such thing as a neutral point of view when the person loves you.
mhm,
There's just not
mhm,
neutral. They're going to have an opinion,
mhm.
and they're doing it out of love, 100% out of love. But when you have someone in front of you that you're talking to and they have a neutral stand and they're there for you, it's you making the decisions, it's you making the realizations for yourself. And I think that is why I love life coaching, is because in counseling, because it's something that empowers you for the rest of your life, like to keep
Mhm.
going, and it teaches you the tools for everything in your life. And it's so worth investing in our minds, because it's that keeps us going. We kind of
Yeah.
need our minds and our health to keep our life going and to live a fulfilling life. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that so I agree with that 100%. And another thing that I think that I really tried to value with my clients is that there is something really nice about when we get off a session that I am not part of your everyday life.
Yes.
Right. If you talk to your husband about it, then he later that evening when you're getting ready to bed, you're still talking about that. And then you're talking about here, you're talking about there, and you're talking about at work. Right. Like, but when you go to counseling, it can really kind of compartmentalize part of that. And depending on what you're struggling with and traumas and stuff, sometimes it's nice to be able to be like, okay, this is my time that I'm working on that. And then I'm going to close those doors and I'm going to go and, live my life. And I don't have to be like faced with that all the time. And that's a really nice way especially if you're fearing like, oh, I don't want to go into this because I'm going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I really think those good professionals are able to help you to do the work in the space that you have available,
Hmm.
but then also live your life in the spaces that need to just be living your life. It doesn't have to be encompassing, I guess.
Yeah. I think for me is, yeah, as you're saying, this is like one of my favorite things is that as a life coach, I don't believe your lies at all.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, tell me more about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But the lies that the devil has been putting in your head and the lies that you've been practicing for years, and the
Hmm.
thoughts and the limiting things that you believe about yourself, we do not believe it. We're not going to sit
Hmm.
there and be like, oh, for you. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
not do that. That you're wanting to do so badly.
Hmm.
Let's just not do it because yeah, it seems hard. We're not going to believe in that. We're going to believe that you are capable
Hmm.
to go after those goals and those dreams and to overcome the things that you're struggling with, because not only are you capable, but you have God in the midst of it too, and He's going to carry you through everything. Yeah, I love that. I had a client that was like, I just haven't been able to post in my podcast because it's been really hard. But when we push away, yes, it's hard, but we're also so capable. And this fills
Hmm.
me up with so much joy. All we
Hmm.
do is resist our own happiness, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. We're pushing away the things that we love because of some thought we have. And having someone that
Hmm.
is neutral in that window is just, it's life changing.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I love this topic so much, and I can talk to you for always. But I do want you to chat with them and tell them an advice that you would want my listeners and our sisters to hear.
I mean, if I had to give one little piece, I would say just um, we are told a lie over and over again that we are not enough. You're not
Yeah.
old enough, young enough, short enough, tall enough, blonde enough, brown enough, whatever it is, whatever it is, the evil one likes to make sure you feel like you are not enough. And we live in a world that absolutely encourages that. because if you ever felt like you were enough, our capitalistic society would fall because we wouldn't be buying all this stuff that would make us good enough, right?
Yes.
And so I just think we are really inundated with that lie. And so when we're able to go back to the roots of who we are as children of Christ, that before we were put in our mother's womb, we were set apart, that we are chosen and created and loved. And I was, as a counselor and as a life coach, I always say I have the coolest job in the world because my job is to help people know how much God loves them
Mhm.
and to help heal the wounds that make it hard to believe. And
Yeah.
so, to those listeners there who are sitting and saying, yeah, but I'm not lovable. If you
Mhm.
knew what has happened to me or what I have done, you would know that I'm not lovable. I challenge that and I reject that in the name of Jesus Christ, that you are enough and that you are loved and that there are resources out there to support you. And to know that anxiety is one of those big evil lies that just comes in there and he lies to you and he says, I got you. I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to make everything better. But at the end of the day, he just wreaks havoc.
Yeah.
And so to know that you are good, to know that God loves you and that there is another side of this. You may have only seen it for one side for a very long time, but I have lots of gray hair and lots of life behind me. And I can tell you that I have been astonished at how God heals and
Mhm.
the stories and the lives that I've been able to walk with and see them live joy.
Mhm.
And living joy doesn't mean it's always easy.
Yeah.
Living joy doesn't mean there's not waves at the beach, but living joy is knowing that I am good and that I can overcome the waves, that I can swim like an Olympic swimmer through those waves. They don't have to always spin me up until I'm confused and discombobulated with life.
Yeah. Yes. I love it. Ah, I love that so much. Yes. You're making me think about, we just recently took a trip to the beach. And that's kind of how
Mhm.
I felt. It's like, oh my word, this is just 50-50. There are some things that are not great. And I had a lot of anxiety, especially that first night when we landed and the traffic was awful in Florida.
Yeah.
And then, but it's a superpower to be like,
Mhm.
okay, God is with me no matter what. This is just a bad moment and this will go away.
Mhm.
And then I'm about to live an
Yes.
amazing time. And I did.
Mhm.
But it's an ebb and flow of those waves. I love that analogy. I love that. What about a saint that you love? And it can be a prayer or a quote that you love.
Okay, so I always like to make a joke that I am a bad Catholic because Mama Mary is not my favorite Mary of the Bible. I do love her a lot. She's not my favorite. And that's because I really connect with Mary Magdalene.
Mhm.
And I think this is really important because Mary Magdalene, we knew she had a checkered past. And she came and she allowed God to love her. And when he was dying to redeem the world, he could have had anyone at the foot of the cross. And she was one of the few. And I think this is a beautiful sign to us every day that when we feel we can't go to God because of whatever it is, that he's like, no, do you remember Mary at the foot of the cross? Like, no, I just love you. Like, I want you at the foot of the cross. That there's nothing that keeps me from you. And I want you here with me. And
Mhm.
so whenever I feel like I'm, just believing those lies of not being enough or, well, I've done this, so how could God love me or how am I worthy of happiness? And sometimes we even feel like happiness isn't for me
Mhm. Yeah.
because of this, right? I think of Mary Magdalene and I think of her that place of honor at the foot of the cross. And I remember that it's there for me.
100%. She's one of my favorites too. Our second daughter's middle name is Magdalene, and
Mhm.
fabulous. Yes, just
Yes.
strong women. And I think, like, to add to that too, when we see the women, I just saw a reel on this. When we see the women in the Bible and in the life of Jesus, they did not have it easy, but they
Hmm.
had him.
Hmm.
None of them had it easy.
Sure.
But yeah, we had him. And it's like when we allow ourselves to go to the Eucharist, to reach out to be pulled from the water by him. It's what we need. It's always what we need. I love that very much. Okay, Catherine, I can talk to you forever about this, about everything, and you're such a joy. But I want you to share with the listeners where they can find you and also about your book.
So you can find me at sacredheartmentalwellness.com. And there I have videos on what is mental wellness, what is the biology of anxiety. My book is there. And there's also a place to book me to speak. So I am a public speaker. I come to women's conferences, families conferences. I've done priests. I've also done trainings on anxiety and mental wellness for schools and dioceses and districts. And I'm really trying to get out there. So if you know anyone who is planning a retreat, needing a conference speaker, I'm really trying to put the word out there because I think we need to be talking about anxiety and mental wellness. So there's information there to book me. I also have the book, The Catholic Guide Through Anxiety, which you can get on the website or on Amazon. And so in this book, what I do is I teach about the biology of what's happening when we are anxious. And I combine that with how we are wonderfully made, how we can see these things instead of negatives or bad things about us, but we can see them as good. And then the second part is 16 tools of different ways that you can manage your anxiety, because there's a lot of talk out there that anxiety exists, but there's very few tools. I'm like, okay, well, but what do I do?
Yeah.
And I really work to seamlessly include the faith into it, because there's so much out there that says, if you're struggling with mental health, you have to leave the church. If you want help, you got to leave the church. When I kind of tie in the book how much the church was already, all the things that we need in the secular world was already in the church. It's like, he knew what we needed. We had it first.
Yes.
And so it's also a very empowering, and it's an empowering book that's an easy read. And this is really important for your listeners to hear, because I was thinking, okay, I'm going to give an anxious person a book. Is it going to be 500 pages? No, because they're not going to read a 500-page book, right? So I tried to make it funny, easy to read. You could probably read it in about 2 hours if you really sat down. And that's from a dyslexic who hates to read, right? So I wrote it with the dyslexics in mind, who are busy and, moms who don't have time to sit down. And I even have worked with the book with 10-year-olds and younger kids to help them kind of break it up and understand their anxiety. And so truly, if you're thinking about mental health, this book, not just because I wrote it, but as a person who is passionate about mental health, I made this as a resource, as a starting place, especially for anxiety and when you feel stuck. Like, what's wrong with me? I can't get out of this rut. Or I love someone, and every time I try to help them, I make it worse.
Yeah.
We all have that loved one who is like, everything will be fine. And then they're like, why is it worse? But you just said that's the worst thing, Yeah. I wanted a resource that enabled those who loved someone with anxiety to feel like they knew how to support that person that they loved.
I love that.
So that's on Amazon, or you can get it on my website and hear other podcasts and various things that I've been on at sacredheartmentalwellness.com.
And I also want to point out that she also has it in Audible, right?
It is on Audible. Okay. Yes.
Awesome. Because that was when you told me that, I'm like, yes, I'm buying it. Because that's how I love reading. Because I'm the same way. I have struggled reading, bit of dyslexia in me, and so that's not the easiest. So listening to it is, plus I'm a musician, and I think that's why just comes in easier that way. But yes, absolutely. Go check it out, and yes, I'm excited to read it too. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a joy to see you and talking with you, and reach out, you guys.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this community. If you are enjoying these episodes, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so that you are notified the next time the episodes come out. Also, right now, I have some spots open to work with me one-on-one. This program will change your life. I 100% believe that without God, we can't. But without us, God won't. I will help you step into your power. I will help you take the actions that you need to take in order for you to create the most fulfilling and aligned life, a life that feels aligned with you and with God. And that life is available to you right now. Check the link in the description to reserve a time to chat with me. I will see you then.